Service Lab is a community of service design doers and the service design curious. We meet up every few months to share our learnings with each other. So welcome everyone to Service Lab. It's really lovely to see quite a few familiar faces, a few new people along as well. Give me a little hand up if you've not been here before, just so we can get a bit of a temperature check. Yeah, a couple, quite a few. Definitely got quite a few familiar faces as well, though. Amazing. Thanks, everyone. And thanks also for being so quick on the tickets. I mean, we've started to sell out this event pretty quickly, but I think this was like a new record. It went in like 3 days. So actually, it was kind of really lovely that we were able to open up to even more people by having it online. So, silver linings. For anyone that is new here, though, Service Lab is a volunteer-run, not-for-profit event series for practitioners to share learnings, inspire each other, and learn new things. Here's the kind of team of organisers. I'm Charlie Pothecary, for anyone that hasn't met me. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself in a second. But I'm also joined with running this event with Best and Ling, who will also do an introduction in a second. And we also have Rupert, who kind of helps out behind the scenes. Rupert and Jenny helped start Service Lab about 10 years ago. I've been running it for about 7 years now. Bess has been doing it for about 2 years, and Ling maybe coming up a year. But we're all kind of like volunteer our time. We really enjoy being able to bring great speakers and great people together. But we're always looking for more kind of volunteers, so do shout if you want to get involved. A little bit more about myself. So I'm a user researcher and service designer. I think it's about 7 years actually, Service Lab now. I haven't updated this for a bit. I'm a service designer and user researcher with a real passion for inclusive design. So I started my own little design agency called Inclusively about 5, almost 6 years ago. I mainly work across the healthcare sector, government and charity sectors, supporting organisations with inclusive research and co-design. I am a little visual description. We as volunteers will be doing that, and all of the speakers will be doing that as well today. I am a white woman with medium brown hair. I'm wearing red and pink earrings today and a blue top. And I'm sat in a quite colourful room with quite a lot of pillows behind me that quite a lot of them I made. I'm going to now pass on to Bess to do a little bit of an introduction too.
Thank you, Charlie, and hello, everyone. Hello from London. And yeah, kind of sad not seeing you, but as Charlie mentioned, there'll be future events, and we really hope to see you there. My name is Best. Best Chalisa Indisan. That's my full name. I'm a self-designer. Currently, I've been working in IT services for local government. I work for 3 different local governments, so that's a challenge in that. Yeah, I really enjoy improving experiences, especially for local employees to have smooth IT experiences. And also, in my spare time, aside from doing Service Lab events, I also volunteer at a organization, at a charity that's focusing on children and young people, and that's also been my interest. So if anyone wants to share more about that, I would really love to learn more about that from you. And yeah, visual description. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my visual description. I'm a Southeast Asian woman with sort of tan skin, dark hair, wearing glasses and headphones, and my favorite stripy shirt right now. Thank you.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Okay, I hope so. Cool. So hey guys, my name is Ling, and I was a service designer before. So I was studying in service design program in RCA, and I graduated last year, and I joined Service Lab right after. But like now, I'm currently working in tech startup and I'm doing marketing. Although I'm still leveraging between like what's the balance between service design and doing growth and doing marketing in tech startup. So like recently I've been vibe coding a lot and working a lot with AI, not just to like improve my day-to-day workflow efficiency, but also to help like businesses to integrate or like to implement AI into their day-to-day business. So yeah, so I'm like so very excited about like today's event. Like, can't wait to like hear every speaker's talk on like the balance or like the intertwine between AI and service design. So yeah, that's pretty much about me, and pass on to you, Charlie.
And do you want to do a quick visual description too?
Oh yeah, okay, forgot. So I am a he him, and I'm wearing like just a lime or I don't know mint colored t-shirt, and I'm sitting in a really bright living room, and it's like blue sky out there, and I'm gonna take a walk later. So side note, but yeah, it's pretty much me.
Thanks so much, Ling. Thanks so much, Best, as well. Just a little reminder, we might take a few kind of screenshots today. Obviously, normally we like to take a few photos at the physical event, so Ling and Bess might do a few screenshots just so we can post about it on LinkedIn. We are recording, so another reminder, if you don't want to be on the recording, just kind of turn your camera off. But also, if hopefully you feel like this event has been really good and you want to share it with more people, we will be putting our event up on YouTube in a couple of weeks' time. We've got all of our previous events up there as well, so do go and kind of take a look. There's always a bit of a community ask. We're always looking for lovely event spaces. We generally need spaces that are about 60 like minimum, because otherwise it just sells out a bit too quickly. And they always need to be accessible. So if anyone knows of any other lovely spaces, that would be great. We've been doing recently some events at Cancer Research, and that's where this one was going to be hosted. But yeah, if anyone's got any other shouts of event spaces, we're always looking for it. Also, if you ever want to give a talk or you've got a topic that you'd really like to hear about, just let us know. We really like to make sure that we're putting on events that really that people are really interested in. And I definitely think this kind of space is something that has come up quite a bit at previous events that people wanted to talk about. So I think that's probably why we ended up selling out quite so quickly. It's not that new anymore because we have been doing it for a little while, but for anyone that's been coming to these for the last couple of years and maybe not come for the last year or so, we now do a 5-minute speaker slot for people wanting to get into user research or into service design. We know that it can be really hard to start in the world of service design or user research. So we've got this spot to be able to give people a chance to share their thoughts and what they're looking for. So again, if you know of someone or if you yourself want to come and be our speaker slot for people wanting to get into user research or service design in the future, just let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, on to the main event then. So really excited about our lineup today. We are going to hear from Clara, who is a freelance design and research leader, capability builder and trainer. We're going to hear from Yini, who's a senior service designer at Imperial College Healthcare Trust. We're going to hear from Sooyoung, who's a service designer and design researcher and recent graduate. And last but not least, we're going to hear from Liberty, who's head of content design at TPX Impact. The agenda, so we're going to hear from Clara first, then we're going to hear from Yini. We're going to give everyone a little bit of a screen break. Then we're going to hear from Sooyoung, going to hear from Liberty, and then we'll wrap up. And then what we've tried out this time, because I know a lot of people wanted to come along to this event and network in person, we're going to try and do a bit of a breakout room at the end if people want to stick around. So what we'll do is once we've wrapped up all the talks, if you want to stay on, we'll enable people to go out into a few different breakout areas. We've got a couple of prompts for conversation starters. So it just might be a chance for you to kind of meet new people and get some more conversations going. And I think I've seen a few people kind of putting in the chat, their kind of like names, roles, and a bit of like saying hello. Please do that. I think it's a really lovely way of trying to make sure that people are also being able to make more connections. And hopefully we'll get to see you all again in person very soon too. So I'm going to pass over to Best, who's going to do a bit of an introduction to Clara, and then Clara will take over the screen.
Cool. I'll do the intro. So Clara is a freelance designer and a researcher. And the talk that she's bringing to us today is about like equity and justice and how are these two topics like undergoes like the change in terms of the trendy usage of AI. So the time is all yours, Clara.
Thank you so much, Best and Charlie, for that intro. Can everyone hear me okay and see slides okay, etc.? Lovely, thank you. I'm just fiddling with my screen so I can see people and also see the chat because I will be using the chat. Hello, it's really nice to see people and to see a few familiar faces and to meet some new people. We've said several times who I am. I'm Clara, my pronouns are she, her. I'll give you a little visual description. So I'm a mixed race cis woman in my 40s. I look a bit Southeast Asian and a bit white because I am. I have short brown hair, a big black cozy jumper on because it is cold in Brighton. And behind me I have a plant, some colourful pom-poms, a beautiful keffiyeh, some posters. So yeah, I'm a designer, researcher. I'm Australian and British, an immigrant mother, part-time worker, grieving daughter. It's lovely to see you all. I want to really briefly acknowledge that we are currently witnessing many horrific things in the world, including a genocide in Gaza. I won't be talking about this anymore today, but I feel like we cannot continue to go through our days and not acknowledge what's happening in the world. This is a beautiful photo by Karim Aboud of Gaza from before the Nakba. She was one of the first female photographers from the Middle East. So, isn't it beautiful? Wasn't it beautiful? I'm just going to encourage you to have a quick look through the 12 equity and justice questions that I've written, because we're not going to have time to go through them all one by one in this talk. So if I can get everyone to download it, I'm going to pop, no, I can't pop that link in the chat. I am going to pop the link in the chat so that you can have a quick look. Because in a minute, I am going to ask you to choose which ones you'd like to talk about, because as I said, we don't have time for all of them. So these questions will, I hope, help teams think through and talk about the consequences of using AI. It really annoyed me to see that a lot of people weren't really thinking through what AI was doing, and more importantly, doing to our products and services and to our end users, and to ourselves, into the people that we are in the society that we live in. And I'm really keen to encourage people to talk about equity and justice all the time. Having these conversations and talking about these things gets easier the more you practice it and the more you do it. So that's what I'm hoping to encourage. I probably don't need to go over how much AI can be problematic, but I've got a few examples here. We know that there are significant environmental impacts from AI and our changing use of AI. We know that AI can perpetuate bias, racism, all kinds of oppressions and discriminations. We know that AI is stealing things from people without credit and without their knowledge and replacing people's work. We know that it's not creating new ideas. We know that AI is not neutral. It has politics embedded in it, and it manifests particular politics over others. And we need to be so much more careful about all of these kinds of things than we are currently being. So what I want to say is artificial intelligence results in different outcomes for different people. Some people benefit more and others are harmed. I'm going to take a moment to talk about equality versus equity. I really enjoy these definitions. So equality means every individual or group is given the same resources or opportunities, and equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. So these definitions are from the Milken Institute School of Public Health. There's also a really great diagram illustration of equality versus equity. So you can see in the equality side on the left, there are three people trying to look over a fence. They each have one box to stand on, but the fence is at different heights and the land is at different heights. So one of the people is struggling to see over the fence, one can see over it really easily, and one has had to make a hole in the fence in order to watch the sports game in the background. On the right-hand side, in equity, we can see that each person has been given a different number of boxes to stand on so that they are able to all see over the fence and get the same outcome, which is watching the sport. And then there's a third image to go with this, which is justice. And what's happening here is the people are dismantling the problem, which is the fence. And I think this is where we, as designers, researchers, people who build and deliver public or any type of services and products, need to be working. We need to be dismantling all of these things as they are being built into our products and services. And I just wanted to also talk a little bit about the symbolism in this image. The ground being at different levels is representing historical oppression. People are starting from different places. The fence being at an angle is representing a present day systems of oppression. Some people have higher fences, more barriers to get over than others. I also just wanted to say a lot of my thinking and inspiration for this stuff has come from a lot of different places. Some of the main ones are the book called Design Justice by Sasha Constanza Chock. Look it up and read it. It's free on the internet, or you can buy a hardback, a physical copy. It's really, really interesting, great book. George I does some great work. Is in the Greater Good Studio in Chicago, I think. Everyone, I've taken a lot of inspiration from their sort of consequence scanning practice. Which is also really interesting and well worth looking at. And what I'm hoping is that these questions can be used in a similar way to how Everyone describes consequence scanning. So I'm thinking things like you could use all 12 questions in a workshop with a team or with your stakeholders. You could individually pick a couple of the questions for discussion in a meeting, a planning meeting, a retro, whatever it is. At the beginning of an AI journey, so when you're considering using and implementing AI, you might use some of these questions. You might check in with some of these prompts or all of them, the questions regularly throughout a development lifecycle for a product or service. That's some of my ideas about how we might use it. I haven't actually used these questions with a team or a service yet. So if you have a team or service where you'd like to try this out, please let me know. I'm very, very keen. Again, here are the links to download and have a read through the questions. Please do that. Let's give you a second for that. So we're about to have a discussion about some of the questions, and I'm going to invite everyone to help me choose which of the questions from the set of 12 we talk about, and also I'm going to get you to put into the chat your thoughts and questions and feedback on each of the questions that we talk about. But unfortunately, I don't have time to go through it all. Okay, I hope you've had enough time to download it. I will tell you a little bit about the history of the questions. I wrote them a few months ago, just after getting annoyed at people on LinkedIn and all over the media in the world using AI without really thinking about it. And I got some really great feedback on my first draft as well. Oh, cool, someone's posted it for me. And so I've tried to, I've updated it to, it used to be called AI prompts, but prompts has a very specific meaning in the Gen AI world. So I changed it to questions, and I've changed it from 10 to 12 questions. And I've also credited some of the people who've helped with some of that thinking and the slides. So you should be able to see that. And now we're going to pop over to Slido. So if I could get you to visit this Slido. Again, I did not grab the link. I don't know how many minutes I have left. If any of the organizers can let me know what time I need to.
You're all good. We're super easy. Just keep going at the pace you want to go at.
I will take all of the time unless someone stops me. Okay, so there's the Slido, and I'd like you to visit that link and then let me know. You can vote for more than one of the questions. Which of those questions are you most interested in talking about further and hearing from other people about? Okay, I'm starting to see some answers coming in, so I will share that with us. Slido is so fun. All these little bits moving around. I do enjoy it. Louise has put a question in the chat. That's really a really good question, Louise. I hope you have voted for 8 in the in the Slido because I would love to have a chat about that. But we probably only have time for going through 3 or 4 questions. I can guarantee you that as designers, we absolutely do have power. How much varies a lot in different contexts. Yeah, lots of votes for 3. Okay, well, I will get started with number 3 then, and I can check back in and how the votes are doing when we've had a little chat. So, number 3, which biases will be amplified? So, some of the things I'm thinking about for this are what biases, prejudice, and paradigms are baked into the data that AI is trained on, and therefore will be baked into whatever it is that AI gives back to us and what we do with AI. And then once we start using AI in our products and services, these biases and prejudices and paradigms are going to manifest into real people's lives because we have real users interacting with and using our services. And I'm wondering, for each context where AI is used, which biases are going to be amplified? How will that change over time? How will we account for that? What will we do about that? So I'd really like to get your thoughts on this in the chat, if that's okay. If you really want to say something out loud, put your hand up and we'll see if we've got time to talk to people out loud as well. But just put your thoughts in the chat. So which biases will be amplified? If you've got any comments or questions about this question, if you're working with a team that's using AI, how would they answer this question? Or what pushbacks do you think you might get if you were to ask your team this question about your use of AI? I'll just give you a few seconds to get some answers into the chat. I think I can see what are faces of people who are typing things into a chat. So I'm going to give you a moment. So I think we're getting some really interesting answers in here. So people definitely favor suggestion. Oh, yeah, they're all coming in. All right. People favoring suggestions from AI and ignoring their own knowledge, which is really a real problem. And we see that in academia, for example, where people are submitting AI rather than doing their own work and having more confidence in that. Ling has suggested things around ethnicity. Absolutely, I think this is true. I've seen very clear biases towards white supremacy in AI and AI-generated images. Where AI is trained on historic written material, the vast majority is definitely written by white, cis, heterosexual men in centuries from the past, and therefore all the biases that they held. So we just think about what paradigms are white, cis, heterosexual, probably Western English-speaking men coming from who had the time to write things and have that published. There's a lot of biases in there. There's very much patriarchy, colonialism, capitalism, all baked into all of that data that's trained on. When you include data into AI, it starts generalizing conversations to that entire group of people. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of generalization. There's definitely gender and race biases in AI. I would add disability injustices baked into AI data. Henrietta, would you like to talk about this use that you have got, that you're seeing, building a database of photos? This is a pretty common problem, I think. Sorry to put you on the spot, Henrietta.
That's fine, no problem. So we've been looking at using AI on skin lesions to be able to help identify cancer, because when it comes to skin cancer, people want to, early intervention, early help and prevention, obviously really important. So actually quite a lot of referrals are made around possibility of skin lesions being cancer, sort of moles and things like that. And actually there's really good trials about AI being able to detect cancer pretty accurately, to be able to at least prioritize those that are more likely so they can be seen by consultants first. However, what's happened is that those AI models have been trained on existing photos, and those photos, majority of the time, have been of white-skinned people. So we are kind of starting a whole new photo bank to take into account, sort of a whole range of inclusion and equality issues, to make sure that the AI is trained on, sort of all skin types and differences, so that it's not having an unequal impact when it's being utilised. But it's very interesting that the testing happened on the original photos, rather, sort of it's not something that was thought of first. It's something very much that had to be pushed for at that point where it had been tested. But if you're going to use it properly in reality and scale it, absolutely those photos need to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Henrietta. That's really interesting. I think a really common kind of problem that we're all going to have to fight for. Thank you for that. There's some great comments in the chat. I'm not going to have time to read them all out, but I do want to talk about one that's drawn my attention from Rochelle. Conflating distinct cultural groups into generic groups, I think, is really interesting. So like a pan-Arab group, instead of having individual imagery ideas for this kind of flattening, conflating process is really interesting. I'm going to move on to the next highest voted question. So it was this one. What systematic inequalities might this AI mask? So this is a slightly different angle on a very similar idea to the one we just discussed. So AI not only amplifies those kind of biases and prejudice in the structures it's trained on, but it can also mask them so we can't see those biases and then legitimize them by producing them and sort of laundering them through a different product or service almost. So I'd love to have a chat about how AI might hide some of these things so that they can't be interrogated and traced, and who it might protect and who that might harm. I'm going to pass that over to you. What are your thoughts on that particular point? What systematic inequalities might be masked and legitimized by this? And I'm also wondering, organizers, if we can save the chat at the end of this, because there's some really interesting, useful comments coming out here. Yeah, so we've got an interesting opening comment from Blaze, which is that AI kind of inherently will side with the traditional, most common, most mainstream power structures and the language and everything that those things put into the data sets that AI is trained on, and it will mask and legitimize those things and bake them into whatever we do with AI. Absolutely kind of English speaking will be masked by that, the English primacy that we live in. Yeah, it's really interesting the kind of stories that AI is creating and how they fictionalize things and make it look like they've got sources that people and sources of evidence that you might not be aware of. It makes the things it's saying feel more legitimate than maybe they are, or than what we're expecting. I think that's really interesting. Right, Thais is saying the opinions of people who don't have access to the internet, who aren't part of the data sets, explicitly the Global South, is definitely going to be kind of that the fact that that is missing, that gap will be masked. And Tim is saying the simplicity of an AI chat interface can help mask and make opaque, complex decision-making processes. Yeah, that's interesting. So you feel like you're talking to a friendly little chatbot, and actually there's a huge machinery of government algorithm behind what that bot is saying, which is really interesting. Really great conversation. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to try and do one more question. So I'm just going to have a flick back to what we've voted for. And then I think I'll probably have to try and wrap up. But the next one is number 9. What politics will it manifest? This is about that we usually have this lovely, and this applies to all of tech, this lovely assumption that tech and AI is just neutral, and it's just going to give you back science, which we also assume is neutral, and none of it is. Tech is not neutral, AI is not apolitical. And it's really important that we talk about what politics our use of AI will have and embody, and how that's likely to change over time, because we're already seeing changes in what AI gives us and what it does to the world. Has anyone got any thoughts, comments, reflections on that? If you said that to your team, what would they say? What pushback might you get? I'd be really interested to hear that. Would your teams and the places that you're working with, the organizations you're working with, be open to the idea that AI has a politics, and that politics might be present in the work? I'm looking at government folks specifically, but not just government folks, obviously. So yeah, AI. So Tim saying AI tech wants to surveil. It wants your data. It wants to collect you and information about you and use it. So that's really interesting. And we might be using services to help AI further that aim. And Henrietta's talking about sort of AI generated and altered photos being used to espouse particular political viewpoints. Yeah, there's a lot of use of AI in the far right by the Israeli government. Yeah. I think these questions feel so interwoven. It's hard to think about them separately. Yeah, absolutely agree, Blaise. There is a lot of overlap over them. And I think probably what I would suggest if you're going to use them with a team is you pick 5 or something like that and just go over those. But I think it's important. So I think it's important to pick these ones where people are struggling to respond. Like I think one's about politics and one's about harm can be harder. They can be more uncomfortable people. And that is why it's important to make people try and have those conversations and think about those things, because the more we practice having those conversations and thinking about these things, the easier it becomes, and the more we can see the nuances and the differences between the different questions. But I think that's a really interesting point. That's great. I love the chat that we've had about this. I think I'm well over time, so I'm going to move down to the end. So if you would like to use any of these questions with your teams or organizations, I'd love to have a chat with you. You can find me in the usual places. And that's it from me. Thank you. I've got a couple of training courses coming up next month, and then that's probably not many more after that, because I'm not going to be freelance for much longer. So yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Clara. There's a lot of round of applause happening for you. That's been really amazing. And we will definitely download the chat so that you can have a look at it, and anyone else that wants to as well. Okay, I'm going to share screen and we'll move on to our next speaker. But thanks again, that was really phenomenal. And also I really agree, it's really fun seeing Slido and just like being able to live do a bit of research. I think we're all quite nerdy in that way, probably. Well, speaking for myself, I definitely really enjoyed being able to kind of see what people are most interested in. Okay, so next up we have Yini. I'm going to pass over to Ling to do a bit of an intro.
Yeah. Cool. So just to wrap up, I think Clara's thought and the entire question sheet, it's a good conversation prompt. So I really think like if people are like saying for the networking like breakout room session, like post the speaker keynote, and I really think it would be really nice to like hear even more in-depth discussion on that. But yeah, so again, thank you for your sharing, Clara, and thank you for all the input and we will be expecting your training courses like upcoming months. So yeah. So okay. Moving on. So our next speaker is Yini, and Yini is senior service designer in Imperial College Healthcare Trust, and the topic that she will be bringing us today is how to utilize and how to blend AI into creating a more sufficient and more evidential behavior persona. And so I'll just hand over the time to you, Yini. So you can take over from here.
Thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Yini. So today I'll be sharing how we can rethink personas in healthcare by building behavioral personas, which blends behavioral science, design, and AI. So a little bit about me. I'm currently a senior service designer at Imperial College NHS Trust, and I was a designer at a Fair Start mission at ANESTA. I was also a designer at Behavioral Insights team, where I integrated design thinking and methods into behavioral science project. Please also feel free to connect with me through LinkedIn or email. In terms of my visual description, I'm an East Asian woman. I'm wearing a striped shirt and I have dark hair. I'm in a plain bedroom. Before diving in, I just want to share a quick note that because of confidentiality, I can't share specific project outputs, but I'll share methods and lessons that can be applied more broadly. So why behavioral personas in healthcare? Traditional personas lean too much on demographics or assumptions, and they miss the real drivers of behaviors. In healthcare, this really matters because behaviors are influenced by the complexity of conditions, services, and the wider healthcare system. We need personas that are evidence-based, behaviorally grounded, and bias-aware. So how does behavioral persona differ from traditional persona? I separated these both in the process of creating them and by the content itself. So in terms of process, they are informed by more structured evidence and can be refined with AI and involves other design methods like system mapping and user testing. I'll go deeper into each of these in the later slides. And in terms of content, behavioral personas zoom in on specific behaviors, like showing up to an appointment and taking medication. They also suggest what could actually shift that behavior, whether it's improving access, addressing trust, or leveraging social support. Second, they put more emphasis on behavioral and social factors, things like motivation, barriers, and the role of friends, family, or community. And thirdly, they're built on behavioral science concepts. For example, understanding cognitive biases that shape decisions or the social norms that affect how people act. So instead of asking who is this person demographically, we're asking why do they act the way they do and what might help them engage better with healthcare. To build behavioral personas, we blend 3 ingredients: behavioral science, AI, and design methods. Behavioral science brings in the evidence, design ensures the personas are practical and usable, and AI help us process information faster and refine outputs, though it really needs careful guidance, which I'll come back later to. So now I'm going to share 4 tips on building behavioral personas. So the first tip is always to start with evidence, specifically with a structured literature review or data review of the behavior you're interested in. and try to look for barriers and enablers, variation across services, and conditions and differences among population groups. The more solid your evidence base, the more meaningful your persona can be. If time and resources allow, incorporate insights from user research, for example, interviews and site observations. If you can also bring in user journey and stakeholder roles. AI tools like Notebook LM can really help here, and they make it easier to spot patterns, differences, and gaps without manually sifting through everything. You can upload the spreadsheet with literature review sources into the tool, and the tool can extract basic details like publication year and abstracts. You can also use it to explore answers to broad research questions across all resources, compare sources, or dive into specific queries for individual ones. Next tip is to map behaviors into context through behavioral system mapping. This is not a mandatory step to creating a persona, but adding it both as an output, but also an intermediate step to inform the persona could be really helpful because engagement with healthcare is shaped by systems and relationships. So a bit more about behavioral system mapping. It actually warrants a session by itself, but I'll give a quick intro of what it is and share a bit of an example. So it is a method for exploring the complex relationships that influence behaviors within a given system or situations. It can be used to understand the major factors influencing engagement with healthcare services and how they relate to each other. And they can also be used to test the literature review findings in a more visual way with experts and users. And in the context of persona development, it helps draw out common themes that could be evaluated in each persona. I'm not able to share an example of the behavioral system map I built, but this open source example from UCL illustrates the idea, which focuses on preventing sexual misconduct at UCL. You can see that the behaviors and factors that influence behaviors are connected to one another by connection lines, and they could indicate positive or negative correlations. And the numbers here indicate the major themes that came up through the behavioral system mapping. And this high-level behavioral system map from the same project illustrates how the major themes within the projects are connected. And these themes are further separated based on whether they predominantly emerge from the general higher education context or originate within the institution itself. Although I can't share the output from my project, I created this simplified high-level behavioral map to outline the uptake of a specific healthcare service. So key influences include the level of knowledge about the service or condition, which can either heighten or reduce the concern related to the healthcare service or condition. And two other major themes are access and logistical barriers to the service, and the former access and logistical barriers to the service and level of trust in the healthcare system. And the former can actually negatively impact the latter. Overarching all of these factors are the effects of social influences, such as the role of friends and families in shaping behaviors and communication challenges, including language and literacy barriers. And the third tip is to build and iterate on the personas with the help of AI, but making sure to use it wisely. Don't just ask AI to make a persona. Instead, guide it with structured inputs. Think about behavioral science concepts, healthcare insights, and service design principles, for example. Most importantly, connected to your literature review and potentially user research too, and feed in clearly defined persona sections. So for example, if you've mapped out key behavioral themes, those can be built into the persona framework too. AI can help you rate and organize these factors across different personas based on your research insights. But of course, you need to kind of manually evaluate, kind of adjust it if it doesn't make much sense. Most importantly, iterate your prompts to cut out stereotypes, reduce biases, and make sure the output reflect the real-world complexity of healthcare. And the goal is to create personas that are not only accurate, but also practical and usable for service teams. And finally, the fourth tip is to test your outputs with both healthcare users and professionals, because design only works when it resonates with people it's meant for, patients and professionals alike. That's why testing is absolutely crucial. And workshops that bring both groups together can be especially powerful. Patients can help validate whether the outputs reflect real-life experiences. Professionals can assess whether it's actionable in practice. And something really valuable happened in that space too, which is shared understanding. So I've seen clinicians realize things that they haven't fully appreciated about patients' barriers, and patients gain insights into the challenges professionals face. When you bring those perspectives together, the persona become more than just a design tool. It becomes a shared reference point that guides better service decisions. So to wrap up, here are a few key lessons. First, try to avoid these pitfalls. Don't treat AI output as final, and don't reduce people to demographic labels, and don't ignore the behavioral and social context. Instead, start with evidence and use system mapping to see the bigger picture. And it will be great if you can work with a behavioral scientist on this, but if not, try to learn the language of behavioral scientists. And thirdly, apply AI very carefully, not blindly. It's not there to replace design thinking. And most importantly, involve patients and professionals, preferably right from the start. And when we do this, personas stop being a static document on the wall. They become tools for actions and they can help healthcare teams design services that people can actually engage with. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Yini. That was great. So we'll stop and see if there's any questions. Feel free to kind of jump into the chat or to unmute yourself.
I've actually got one. But it's more like because you mentioned a
Cool.
more of a
yeah.
Oh, okay,
No,
cool.
no, no.
No. I'm just curious because you mentioned more of a methodology suggestion and how you use this methodology in practice in your field. But like in terms of the tool, like what are the AI tools, the agent or like other AI tools that you use to help build up that behavioral persona?
So I actually used ChatGPT, and we created an agent that specifically helps build behavioral personas. So we kind of inputted like what I said, like behavioral science literature, and also like literature about the healthcare decision itself, and also like UX and service design principles. And then based on that agent, we inputted the literature review we found for that specific project or that specific action, and then built on it further. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And also Charlie mentioned that she is interested to know more about like what's the building process of that behavioral system map.
Oh yeah. So basically, we use the literature review and kind of extracted insights from them, and then I kind of like picked out the behaviors and influencing factors for those behaviors, and then like dumped them all in like one canvas, and then I tried to like draw connections between the different behaviors and influencing factors, and then cluster them into themes, which is similar to I can't remember what that something mapping, cluster mapping or something. Yeah. That's like the user researchers do a lot.
Cool. And I think Heather brought up a really interesting question. So in terms of the AI generated behavioral persona, comparing to the traditional persona, so what's the main difference and how does it impact your work?
I think one big difference, which may sound like I'm being lazy, is that it does actually structure my thinking better. And also because we've inputted a lot of relevant insights into it, like it does like build a good foundation for like how we are, like what we're working to build. But then as well, like, so AI comes with hallucinations and generalizations, and that's where like human brain comes in. So we try to like reduce those biases. Yeah.
Cool. I think we'll leave the rest of the question for the post speaker like networking session. But like for now, I want to like just quickly wrap up and like to conclude what Clara and what Yini just shared during their talk. So I think I've also been talking with the team like on like how should service designer position ourselves like in this like AI first trend. So my conclusion is just me personally think that we should treat AI like agents as like a unique stakeholders, like in terms of just seeing it as a tool. So like it kind of resonate with what Yini just shared. Building up an entire like agent model to like help your work to build up that behavioral persona. So I think that kind of mindset is making like a bit more sense in terms of yeah, we should treat AI agent as a individual stakeholder. So then it comes in with ethnicity, inclusivity, or like other literacy issue, which I believe is what Clara was mentioning during her talk.
So we're actually very excited for the next speaker because Sooyoung has been volunteering with us for many events, and now it's her turn. Yeah, yay! It's her turn to be sharing about her experiences throughout her university experience and also her academic project as well. Sooyoung is a service designer and design researcher and also a recent graduate from RCA, and she's been involved with so design community. And yeah, over to you, Sooyoung.
Hello, I'm Sooyoung, a recent graduate from the Royal College of Art. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm 30 years old, East Asian woman with tied up dark brown hair and a round face. Now I'm wearing glasses and wearing gray t-shirt and sitting in my room with green beddings here, which is my favorite color. Again, hello, my name is Sooyoung. I describe myself as a design handy person. And no, I don't carry a hammer around, but I do carry a toolbox, and I will walk you through some of the tools I've picked up through my design journey. For my BA, I studied automotive design, but I was always more curious about user segments than car segments. That curiosity led me to explore roles in customer service, operations, and UX research, and eventually to study business as well. Over time, I realized what I love most is connecting people, systems, and services. That's what brought me to service design at Royal College of Art. RCA gave me great opportunities over the year. Among many projects, I will share some of them. One of my first RCA projects was with TfL and local cycling groups. My team worked on encouraging more women to cycle in London. Turns out the issue wasn't infrastructure, it was confidence. We designed a buddy matching service that paired hesitant riders with confident cyclists. During the project, I attended many cycling sessions in person, as well as designed one for target users. TfL liked how we analyzed the issues and called our workshop creative and aligned with real user needs. After that, I partnered with MHA East London to amplify the voice of older adults and address intergenerational disconnection. I ran drawing and storytelling workshop for a month and co-created a community publication. It sparked conversations between generations and even raised 3 times more funding than the previous year. And more importantly, participants felt seen and valued. And the zine was used to advocate for support at the council level. I also initiated a project on the NHS social prescribing with Brent Council, link workers, and researchers. The problem here was that non-medical care was being delivered through a medical lens, and frontline workers were often invisible in the system. So we created future policy directions and designed tool for frontline staff to improve things right now, forming a feedback loop between strategy and service. It's been shared with multiple councils and recently shortlisted for the Helen Hamlin Design Award. Across all these projects, I wasn't just following a method. I was diagnosing, adapting, and making things work. Sometimes with journey maps, with drawing tools, even with board game. That's why I call myself a design handy person. I carry the tools, yes, but more importantly, I know which one to use, when, and how. Sometimes I even invent new ones. And when people talk about AI replacing design jobs, I'm not too worried because AI can't replace someone who reads the room and brings people together for change. So instead of worrying, I added it as one of my tools in my toolbox. Because handy persons are replaceable, they're essential. Although my previous projects were in the public sector, now I'm working as a customer experience consultant at an IT company. Like this, I work across sectors, not in one industry, but where service, systems, and people meet, all the places problems can evoke. After all, a good handy person don't say, oh, I only fix Victorian houses. They roll up their sleeves, figure it out, and make things better, regardless of the industry. That's what I do, and that's who I am. So, this is the brief walkthrough of my design journey. And yes, I'm currently employed, but my contract is ending soon. And I'm open to new opportunities. So, if you ever need a design handy person, now you know who to call. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, love that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very, very nice way of describing yourself as a handy person with your toolbox and walking us through your project along with the tools that you have. It's very lovely. And yeah, Sooyoung, it's looking for experiences and opportunities. So if anyone interested to contact her, very handy designer, well-rounded, different type of projects. And yeah, know when to use the tools, what tools to use, and also AI proof as well. So yeah, feel free to connect with Sooyoung, message her, or stay at the end to connect with Sooyoung in the breakout room. Yeah, so anyone got any questions for Sooyoung?
I think Henrietta's got a good question. What tool would you not want to be without?
I don't know whether this counted in as a tool, but I would say a good teammate. Because without good teammates, even though you have a amazing tool, it's really, really hard to diagnose and framing the problems and even making the good solutions. So I would say a good teammate.
I feel like that's the best answer ever.
That's obvious.
I'm still not over the AI generated image of you at the end as well. It was so good. Oh, thank you so much for that. I think we'll probably move on, but shall like put into the chat if there's any other questions or anything else. And yeah, I think Bess will do a quick intro for Liberty.
Yes. So our last but not least guest speaker, Liberty-Belle Howard. She is a head of content design at TPX Impact with 8 years of experience across public and private sector as well. And content design has been quite a popular topic. We got a lot of voices, a lot of opinions. So we're very excited to have Liberty, who is such an expert in this area, to talk about how AI is changing content design. And whenever you're ready, over to you, Liberty.
Brilliant. So I'm obviously very well introduced by Bess. Thank you very much there. As she said, I'm the head of content design at TPX Impact. And TPX Impact are a consultancy that does work primarily with public sector clients. That's where most of my work has been in the last 4 years that I have been there. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a white woman in my mid-30s with shoulder length brown / grown out blonde hair and a fringe. I'm wearing a black top and I'm in my office, which currently just has sort of a boring white background behind me, and my cat came in right on cue. She's a 7-year-old tabby. She's a bit grumpy and you might see her again throughout the presentation. So I'm here to share some thinking my team and I have been doing around content design in this kind of new developing AI age. And the slides I'm going to present sort of came off the back of a blog post I did about doing content design on AI supported services, how I thought content designers would be able to add value to those projects that are often seen as quite technical. Kieran, my cat is like, her timing is impeccable every single time. It's always on point. Anyway, so just a disclaimer, as Beth said, there's been a lot of content design voices and content design opinions about AI. I'm not claiming to be an expert. I probably won't be able to answer your questions, but I'm sort of at the beginning of my journey with thinking about and understanding how AI is going to shape the future of content design. And so with that, the number one question I get asked and the number one topic that I see people talking about on LinkedIn and elsewhere online when it comes to content design and AI, and in fact, when it comes to all design and AI, is AI going to take our jobs, with this sort of like air of Kermit panic? And it's a fair question, and actually it's a question that Sooyoung answered really well. But if we're thinking specifically about content design, we know that ChatGPT can already generate a pretty decent first draft of lots of different content types and summarize information very quickly. And it's only going to get better as it learns. And I've seen a lot of copywriters like saying that it's harder than it used to be to find work. I used to be a digital copywriter and I wouldn't want to do that job anymore, because people do think that generative AI can do a lot of that stuff, rightly or wrongly, instead of a copywriter. However, although a big part of what we do as content designers is writing content and working with words, it's a bit more complex than that. So my point of view is that AI is really shaping how people find, understand and act on information. And often this comes in the form of chatbots or assistants. In the public sector, we can see stuff like the gov.uk chatbot. There are some department-specific chatbots like the Ask HMRC online chatbot. And there are also internal civil service-facing chatbots, which if you haven't been working in government, you might not know about, but they'll be sort of like, you know, MHCLG, for example, will have a chatbot that assists its staff with specific kind of queries that they might need to have. We're also seeing AI complement digital products and services through things like AI-enhanced search systems and AI decision support tools. And obviously, a lot of us are using third-party large language models that read and summarize content. So those are some of the ways that the AI is shaping how we find, understand, and act on information. when we're using these tools, we don't experience the content as a full web page with context and related information. We see fragments or summaries of content, or we see like sort of AI generated answers that draw from a source content, but really we're not seeing the before and we're not seeing after, we're just seeing the thing that we asked to see. And this means that content in or about a product or service or policy, if we're talking of government sort of context, needs to be useful and readable for human users, as it always has been, but also now for AI. So to come back to the question, is AI going to take our jobs? I don't think so, but I do think it will change them. As content designers, I think it will change what we do quite significantly. So first of all, I think that we'll spend our time quite differently than we do now. And I think someone that's mentioned this in the comments earlier about AI taking away some of those sort of low-level jobs, the admin type things that are quite boring to some of us, and freeing us up to do some more interesting things with our time. So I've said things like writing first drafts. Some people love it, some people hate it. I have a real blank page fear, the idea that I could ask a large language model to generate a first draft that I then get to tinker with and improve and make better. That's quite appealing to me. Applying style guides as well. Alice Bishop on my team, who, if any of you are going to Button Conference, is speaking at Button Conference. She did a really interesting thing for our internal content design playbook, where she gave it really specific instructions of what the format and the style needed to be of the content, and then gave it some content and got it to sort of edit it in a consistent way. Obviously it wasn't perfect. She had to go and check it and redo some bits, but it's a great sort of time saving and kind of, labor intensive task that she was able to outsource mostly. And that frees us up to do different stuff. What that different stuff looks like, I'm not sure at the moment. It could be things like coming more involved in strategic comms and bringing sort of user-centered design processes into some of the comms work that, our friends in marketing do. It could be spending more time creating content patterns or working on information architecture and things like content governance processes, like some of those sort of really meaty, big strategic content design tasks that I think a lot of us prefer to spend our time doing. I also think it's really important to point out that our role as custodians of content will become even more important than it is now. So we'll be making sure that products, services, websites, guidance content don't sort of become full of AI slop, as people call it. Of course, we can't stop teams from using AI to generate content, but we can make sure that people around us who are responsible for content know how to use generative AI responsibly and make sure that the outputs meet high content design standards. And actually, to draw on Clara's talk from the beginning, content designers and all designers are going to be integral in ensuring responsible use of AI in products and services. And like, as Clara said, sort of asking our stakeholders and clients, what's the use case for using AI here? Do we really need it? Clara, your daughter is so adorable. Sorry, I'm just a little bit distracted by her. And is it going to create biases or have unintended consequences? Is it worth the environmental impact of the AI to incorporate it into this product? Those are questions that content designers, but designers of all, discipline will be asking, should be asking, as we begin to work more with AI. And then we'll also start working on products and services that embed AI, and that's what the blog post that I wrote was sort of about really more. One thing I found interesting is that up until recently, a lot of the rhetoric around AI and content design was about what generative AI can do for content designers. So the stuff that I just went through, rather than, or like what we're scared that they'll be asked to do instead of us, so taking our jobs. But like, as content designers, we don't just write words. We're a crucial part of the user-centered design process. We've been saying it for 15 years or so, and we'll keep on saying it. We should find that instead of being outsourced to AI tools, we're finding ourselves working on products and services that embed them. And that's what I'm really interested in. So how we'll actually work with AI. I appreciate that some people might be a bit scared of the thought of their job sort of changing radically due to AI, but I think it's really exciting. And I think as a design community, as a content design community, as a design community sort of more widely, we're at a moment now where we get to define what that change looks like instead of sort of having it done to us. So in that vein, and in sort of 2.5 minutes, I'm going to have a little bit of a chat about how I think content designers might work with AI supported services. The most important thing to come back to is that an AI tool is only ever going to be good as the content it uses, the content that underpins it, that it draws from to provide information, and the prompts that you give it, all of that kind of thing. And there are some challenges in this space. So governance, poorly written or ambiguous content can result in hallucinations, misinformation, or harm. Without human-centered design accuracy, so without human-centered design, AI can reinforce bias and it can exclude vulnerable users. And feasibility as well, like teams need help understanding when and how to safely automate user-facing content. As content designers, we can support this transition to a different type of content by shaping the systems and the sort of patterns and information that AI tools rely on. So some of the ways that it can help really quickly, creating and testing prompt logic. I think by now we sort of all understand how important prompt engineering, as people call it, as prompt design, as I like to call it, is. The better the prompt, the better the output from most large language models, and that's a really natural way for us to add value. Content designers were already experienced in writing clear, easy to understand content for human users. And we can write and test reusable prompt templates for people to use to get reliable outputs, write meta prompts that sort of influence how a large language model or an agent sort of behaves as a whole, or that gives context to a user query, that kind of thing. And then another one I've sort of mentioned already is designing content governance and management processes. So without strong governance workflows, an AI-supported service has high risk of hallucinations or pulling incorrect information. And there's also little visibility into what content AI tools are actually using if you don't have a really good governance process in place. So good content governance will help us identify where content can be shared, reused across tools and services, avoid us duplicating work, make sure we know sort of what content the tool is pulling from, and all of that kind of good stuff. Designing content structures that AI can read effectively. This is the thing that I think is most exciting. It's like a sort of extension of information architecture, and I've heard it called atomic content design, so breaking down information to sort of the smallest possible kind of thing, making sure that they're really clearly tagged and reusable components. So that might be, for example, definitions, steps, rules, exceptions, criteria, outcomes, and making sure they're in the right place for the AI to pull them in response to a relevant query. And then finally, shaping tone of voice and providing friction. So I think, again, we touched on this in Clara's talk, but AI is built to serve. It'll tell you what you want to hear or what the people who designed it want you to hear. You have to explicitly ask it to challenge you. In order to stop tools, particularly sort of internal tools like decision-making ones turning into yes men, or reinforcing biases, or supporting political agendas like we talked about earlier, there needs to be guidance for stakeholders and policy teams on how and when they should and shouldn't use AI, when it needs more human oversight, what the consequences might be. So an example, I sort of asked my fictional, in my head, DWT chatbot the question, what do I need to do if I want to apply for universal credit? I live with my partner. And to answer this question, an AI chatbot might pull from an eligibility criteria content object, looking for anything tagged with partner and universal credit, and then retrieve a checklist of documents from a separate application documents content object, find relevant information from how to apply content, combine them into one answer, formatted as a simple checklist, and then cite any sources and link to the full guidance. And if sort of all of this stuff that I just went through didn't happen, the answer could be incorrect, confusing, it could be missing key details, it could be hallucinated, or it could, if it hasn't been well tested or like sort of given the correct meta prompts, answer in a way that contradicts the gov.uk tone of voice, or just say that it doesn't understand the query. And as a side note, I went through quite a lot of prompts to get ChatGPT to create something that looked like it could belong on gov.uk. So I think that shows you that there's still quite a long way to go with these tools. Stuff like it really was determined to put title case in. And when I said, no, don't use title case, use sentence case, it then had no capitals anywhere in any titles, including at the beginning or on proper nouns. So you had to do quite a lot of sort of tinkering with it to get it to understand some pretty basic content design principles. And then just finally, quickly, AI is moving really fast, which means that content design needs to move with it. I just wanted to pull out that since I first wrote this presentation a few weeks ago to give some internal TPX people. ChatGPT released Agents and ChatGPT 5. Agents is something that I've not played with that much, but from what I see, I think it will become more and more advanced to the point where some user journeys or commercial things, like, for example, buying a flight could be done by an agent. You just go to the agent, say, can you buy me a flight to, Malaga, which is where I went on holiday last week, and it will do it all for you. And the next logical step for government services is that if you can make these things secure enough for people to trust it with their personal information, government services could be the same way. You could apply full benefits through an agent. And this means that users will never see a website. Many users will never see a website. They will do all of their interfacing with the internet, with the products and services that we design, through either like a native chatbot that the client has designed to go alongside its service, or kind of a third party like OpenAI type agent. And that's it. Sorry, because I got a bit fast at the end there because I realised I was running a little bit over time. But that's it.
That was amazing. That was so good. Thank you so much. We'll just pause to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, very thought-provoking. But I appreciate how you come up with a bit more, exciting and positive aspect to it as well, and how we are the ones that can shape this and then provide also the things that we could do to shape that. But we do have some questions. Ling, you wanna just turn the mic on and
sure.
ask Liberty, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So I'm also from content backgrounds, SEO specifically, and I've always been wondering. So how are these agents like blurring or like just blending the boundary between SEO and like the content design, like the technical part of it and the design part of it, and also the content part of it. Like how do you see it? And like what I meant by this is like how should we redesign the content itself, either the layout, the information architecture, or like other element of it to fit or match the language model preferences?
I think, like, from what I'm seeing at the moment, it's like I said, sort of about atomic content design. So I think in the future, when we have CMSs for building websites, for example, at the moment you have sort of like title, subheading, body copy. I think that will become very, very granular. So it will be, you'll be sort of putting in very like small components of content to build a whole page. So you still have all of that body content. It'll be tagged in the back end to the point where you can ask a chatbot, like, what width is this sort of IKEA desk, for example, and it will be able to go like in the backend CMS, see exactly what the kind of width field says and pull that out. So I think that it will be about sort of making content a lot more modular, which is going to create kind of really interesting and exciting information architecture like challenges. I mean, I think information architecture is really interesting. Maybe not everyone else shares that view.
Yeah. I've got one follow-up on that. So like, do you think it's a quantity or quality game? Like in terms of, because you mentioned like granularity and like breaking down these content into like atomic pieces. So like, is it like a you have to write like duplicate content pieces on like various different keywords, and you build up that like I don't know, like content pyramid, and then you have the language model to parse it out and to like build up the answer, like which is like favorable to your brand, or like it's like a quality thing that you have to write like a lot of different long form content to build up like a like essential and sufficient like knowledge base on your brand.
I think probably the second, because I think if you sort of go with the quantity approach, I mean, it'll work in terms of sort of generative AI, large language model kind of optimization, if you want to make sure that your products are recommended, like, when people have queries, but it maybe would not sort of represent your products accurately in the queries that are being returned. So I think someone's put in there kind of ironically, AI means doubling down on back-to-back good basics. And I really agree with that. It's about really logical information architecture, really consistent tagging. And yeah, like SEO is definitely a massive consideration.
Cool. Thank you. That's very clear.
Okay, we have a hand up from Haley. Would you like to turn the mic on?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. First of all, Liberty-Belle, that was wonderful. What an amazing roundhouse. I was really struck by that kind of final point that you were making about AI agents and the potential in the future we won't, as particularly for things like, you know, where we'd be going, say for instance to gov.uk or wherever, for kind of support with really important parts of our lives, the potential that we may not need to use a website at all. And to kind of draw on what Clara, some of the principles that Clara was discussing before, you know, around the one about accountability, really struck me. And also, I think is it Mariana in the chat who was talking about kind of how we build trust and things like that with citizens. I wonder if there's something that it's not just about what's happening in the back end, but what we'd be doing from a content perspective in the front end to kind of bring about transparency, legibility, understanding what's actually happening here, and if there's, you know, if you have any thoughts on that, or
Yeah, I think like it's tricky. I mean, the best sort of idea I've got at the moment is to make sure that as a design community and a content design community, we really talk loudly about what the work that we're doing and the thinking we're doing in these areas are, like, you know, how we think these models work, because all of us don't know, right? Like, we're all sort of making a best guess at kind of what OpenAI has done to make the thing work the way that it works. But I think, like, to your point and the point in the chat about kind of people not using websites, I really do think that, you know, at the risk of sounding like a really old, grumpy sort of elder millennial, there are some people who are kind of, you know, children and teenagers today who probably will never interface with a website in a meaningful way. They'll search for things on TikTok, which already a lot of teenagers, I sound really old, don't I? But it's true, like TikTok is a new search engine for people, you know, and they'll use ChatGPT for kind of like queries that can't be given to them through kind of video content, and that's quite sort of worrying if these things aren't designed in the right way. And I think that's why we sort of, like, I would love to see, you know, kind of service-driven agents and chatbots that there will be in the future. So, for example, my fictional DWP chatbot, like really sort of showing what its sources are, and like having disclaimers and guidance and stuff, and like so that people understand that this is something they can trust. It's based in gov.uk. It only draws from that, all of that kind of thing. And I think the gov.uk chatbot that currently exists, it does do sort of a decent job of that. I hope no one who designed it is on this call, because I'm going to say something maybe slightly critical of it now. But it kind of has this thing, this disclaimer at the bottom that says, you know, chatbots can hallucinate, please check your answers. And I just think, well, okay, yeah, but if that's there, then what's the point in having the chatbot? So can we fix that first? I don't think you can ever completely eliminate hallucinations, but at least help people understand why they happen and when to spot that they might have happened. And you do that through good content design and good content infrastructure, I think.
I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Liberty. I think we'll probably pause questions for there. I think there's probably quite a few more in the chat though, but wary on time. But this has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to do a bit of a kind of summary and wrap up, just to make sure that we're thinking about all of the great talks that we've had today. So I know Clara's had to drop off, but just to cast our minds back to earlier this evening, we heard from Clara, who was talking about the difference between equity, equality, and justice. We saw those kind of 12 amazing questions that I'm sure all of us are going to be coming back to in the future. We then had a great talk from Yini all about creating behavioural healthcare personas. I really enjoyed the behavioural systems mapping and how you kind of got to that. And that really important learning of don't treat AI as outputs as final, always needing to kind of come back to them and give it the human touch. Sooyoung, really amazing. I think calling yourself a design handy person is just a really lovely phrase. It was really interesting to see some of the work that you've been doing around elderly populations, improving cycling and improving social prescribing. So please do reach out to Sooyoung if you've got anything that you need a design handy person on. I also just loved that toolbox. I thought it was a really sweet touch. And Liberty, I think we've all taken away so many insights from this talk. I really liked what you mentioned around atomic content. I think that's a really interesting space. The importance of content governance, and also just like that overarching thing of like, it will change our roles, but hopefully not be replacing us, and how important it all is as content designers and designers in general to be talking about this. This has been a really fantastic event. I've learnt loads. I love putting on these events precisely because we get to learn lots of different things from amazing people. So thank you so much for spending the evening with us. A massive thanks to my co-organisers and volunteers as well. Sooyoung, thank you so much for volunteering in the past. I know we had some further volunteers for this session when we were going to be doing it in person. So thanks again to them, and obviously to Ling and Best. We're always looking to make these events better. We don't normally do them online anymore, but it has actually been quite nice to do one online. It's nice to see a lot more wider people being able to kind of join. Do let us know if you've got any feedback for us on LinkedIn. We're always up for kind of hearing a bit about it. And again, shout if you're up for talking about something, shout if you've got an event space, and shout if you've got any topic suggestions going forward. So we're now, some people may want to leave, some people may want to stay. If you want to do a bit of networking, Ling and Best are going to stay on and run some breakout groups.
Reminder, we need to take a screenshot.
Good shout. So do not leave just yet. Yes, if everyone is up for doing a little wave and hello, Ling and Best will do a little screen grab. It's always nice just to see some more faces as well.
Let me change the view. Gallery.
Yeah, you get to see that there's more people on the call that you didn't really realise were there. I'm not going to start shouting out random names, but I was tempted to.
Wait, Bess, how can I like include everyone on the screen?
I'm trying to work out as well.
You might have to
me
do some multiple.
Maybe you should stop sharing the screen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, okay. There you
good
go.
idea.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. I'm more of a Teams girly, so I really don't know. Okay, let me do that. All right.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for bearing with us. It's always nice to see lots of faces. So yeah, jump out if you're done for the evening and stay on if you want to network. But thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you at some future events.